In a world where childhood is often seen as a time of innocence and wonder, a dark reality emerges, the existence of young mass murderers.
Through the entire time, I was putting myself in a fantasy world.
These individuals have shattered the illusions of innocence, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. But what compels a child to commit such unspeakable acts?
I can't take back what was done. I wish I could. I would give my life.
Are they products of their environment, or are there deeper psychological factors at play?
It's real because I did it, and I take responsibility for doing it.
Join us in today's video as we explore the chilling stories of the top 10 youngest mass murderers in the world. Brace yourself for a journey into the unsettling world of youthful darkness. Number 10. Nicholas Browning. In the serene town of Cockeysville, Maryland, a chilling story unfolded that sent ripples of shock across the nation. This tale revolves around the Browning family, a seemingly average family who met a tragic end at the hands of one of their own. It all began on a normal evening in Cockeysville. John and Tamara Browning, along with their 3 young sons, Nicholas, Gregory, and Benjamin, lived a quiet life in their suburban home. Little did they know that their lives were about to take a dark turn. On that fateful night, Nicholas Browning, the eldest son, was out with friends at the mall. They were having a good time before Nicholas left in the middle of the night to return home. Upon getting into his house, he noticed that other family members were in bed. He then shot each of them using a gun belonging to his father. Following the incident, the police were summoned to the scene, after which they launched a thorough investigation. Detectives searched through the house for clues, while Nicholas and his friends were questioned. As the investigation progressed, suspicion turned toward Nicholas. His composed demeanor during interrogations raised red flags. How could he stay so calm after something awful happened to his family? His indifferent attitude and inconsistencies in his story cast doubt on his innocence. The spotlight now shone on Nicholas Browning, the seemingly composed teenage boy turned prime suspect. In a dimly lit interrogation room, Nicholas faced intense scrutiny from detectives. Accusations flew, and questions probed deep, pushing him to unravel the truth behind the Browning family tragedy. The evidence against him and all the questions had begun to make him feel really tired and stressed. His denials weakened, and he eventually admitted to the killings. During his confession, Nicholas alleged that because he had suffered abuse from his father and he didn't want anyone to tell him what to do, he had to kill his parents. Besides that, he also confessed he killed his younger brothers, Benjamin and Gregory, so that he would not be required to share his inheritance with them. Subsequently, he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Currently confined at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, he faces the possibility of parole after completing 23 years in 2031, with a recent denial of a sentence reduction in 2014. Number 9. Joshua Phillips. What started as a regular room cleaning ended with the conviction of a 14-year-old boy named Joshua Phillips. It all began when Joshua's mother decided to tidy up his room one fateful morning. Little did she know that she was about to stumble upon a clue that would rock their peaceful existence. As she moved closer to investigate a wet spot beneath Joshua's bed, assuming it to be a waterbed leak, she noticed something unusual. An electrical tape was firmly holding the bed frame together, and that piqued her curiosity further. What she discovered next would send shivers down her spine. As Miss Phillips peeled away the tape, she came across her son's sock. Confusion turned into horror when she felt an icy coldness beneath it. With trembling hands, she held a flashlight and turned it on to illuminate the dark corners of her son's bedroom. What she saw was the lifeless body of Maddie Clifton, their 8-year-old neighbor who had been missing for about 7 days. The news of Maddie's tragic fate spread like wildfire throughout the community. Shockwaves reverberated as people struggled to come to terms with the unthinkable. Could one of their own be responsible for this brutal crime? Joshua Phillips was among the volunteers who had participated in the search for Maddie, making his involvement more disturbing and difficult to comprehend. The disbelief and heartbreak of his parents were noticeable, as they grappled with the thought that their own son could be capable of such violence. As the justice system swung into action, the prosecution sought to hold Joshua accountable for his horrifying actions. However, due to his age, he did not qualify for the death penalty. Ultimately, Joshua Phillips was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Throughout the trial, one perplexing question lingered. Why would Joshua commit such a heinous act? To this day, the motive behind his actions remains a mystery. Joshua claimed that he accidentally struck Maddie in the eye with a baseball bat, leading to a chain of violent events that ended in tragedy. However, the jury did not believe his explanation, leaving the true motive shrouded in darkness. Number 8. Costa Kovic. The tragic tale of Costa Kovic is one that would send shivers down your spine. It happened on May 23, 2023, at Vladislav Ribnikar School in Belgrade. A regular day turned into a scary nightmare. Laughter and chatter filled the hallways as students went about their day. Little did they know that they were about to witness an unforgettable day of horror. In one of the classrooms, 13-year-old Costa Kovic sat quietly, appearing calm and innocent. But behind his fake appearance, he had a secret bad plan that he wanted to carry out. Armed with his father's guns, Kovic entered the school with a sinister intent. He had been planning this attack for a month, carefully choosing his targets and actions. His heart raced with anticipation as he unleashed a barrage of gunfire, catching everyone off guard. Chaos ensued as students tried to find safety, but Kovic was relentless. His chilling determination led him to another classroom where he mercilessly unleashed more bullets, tragically ending the lives of students and a teacher. As gunshots echoed through the school, panic and fear gripped everyone. Amidst the terror, a courageous security guard confronted Kovic to the extent of sacrificing his life in an attempt to stop the senseless violence. Eventually, the authorities apprehended Kovic, after which he confessed to his heinous acts. In total, he killed 9 fellow students, 1 security guard, and injured 6 others in a rampage that left the Balkan nation in shock. In the aftermath of the event, Kovic, due to his age, could not face criminal charges under Serbian law and was placed in a psychiatric institution for evaluation. However, his parents faced charges of a serious act against general safety for their alleged failure to secure the firearm and ammunition used in the tragic incident. Additional charges have also been filed against Kokovic's father, including the allegation that he trained the boy in firearm use without proper security measures at the family residence. As it stands, the nation awaits justice and seeks to understand how such a horrific event could have occurred in the first place. Number 7. Lionel Tate. What might be thought of as a regular TV wrestling match led to the tragic death of 6-year-old Tiffany Eunuch. Kathleen Grosset Tate entrusted her son, 14-year-old Lionel, to watch over Tiffany, who was Lionel's sister, one fateful evening at their home. As she went upstairs, she heard noise but assumed it was just innocent play. Later that night, Lionel called his mother, revealing that Tiffany was not breathing. Shockingly, he confessed that during their wrestling match, he had put her in a headlock and slammed her on a table. The devastating outcome of their play was far more than anyone could have anticipated. Upon investigation, the medical examiner's report revealed the brutal truth behind Tiffany's death. She had sustained injuries from forceful stomping that lacerated her liver, a fractured skull and rib, brain swelling from a beating lasting 1 to 5 minutes, and 35 other injuries. Lionel's initial statement shifted later, claiming he had jumped on her from a staircase, adding to the already heart-wrenching details of the case. Lionel was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole in 2001. However, his sentence was overturned due to the lack of a mental competency hearing before or during the trial. After spending 3 years behind bars, Lionel was released in 2004 and was placed on 10 years probation. Number 6. Adam Lanza. On December 2012, the entire nation was left stunned when a devastating act of violence took place at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. The perpetrator behind this horrific event was 20-year-old Adam Lanza, who had a troubled background and a history of mental health issues that ultimately led to his descent into violence. Adam Lanza was born on April 22, 1992, in Kingston, New Hampshire, and he grew up in a seemingly ordinary suburban household. However, as he entered adolescence, signs of his troubled mind started to manifest. His parents, Nancy and Peter Lanza, went through a difficult divorce in 2009, which had a profound impact on Adam. He struggled to cope with the changes in his family dynamics and gradually became more isolated and withdrawn, seeking solace in his own world. During this period, Lanza's fascination with violence and mass shootings began to take hold. He devoted countless hours to researching and studying previous acts of mass violence, fueling his disturbing obsessions. As Lanza entered his teenage years, his mental health continued to deteriorate. He was diagnosed with several psychiatric disorders, including obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety, and Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism spectrum disorder. These conditions, combined with his growing fascination with violence, created a dangerous mix. Lanza's severe social and emotional difficulties only worsened his struggles with mental health. He found it immensely challenging to connect with his peers and always felt like an outsider. As a result, he withdrew from social interactions and spent more and more time immersed in virtual worlds, particularly online forums and video games that glorified violence. In the years leading up to the Sandy Hook tragedy, Lanza's mental state continued to deteriorate, with his fixation on violence reaching alarming levels. He meticulously documented the actions of mass murderers, compiling a spreadsheet that detailed their methods and preferred weapons. This disturbing preoccupation was a clear indication of the darkness that consumed him. Despite his troubling state of mind, Lanza's access to firearms remained a cause for concern. His mother, Nancy Lanza, was an enthusiast of firearms and owned several, including the Bushmaster AR-15 rifle that Adam would later use in the shooting. It is believed that his mother's lax approach to securing her firearms allowed Adam easy access to these deadly weapons. As the day of the shooting approached, Lanza's mental health issues and obsession with violence reached a breaking point. On that fateful day, Lanza entered 2 first-grade classrooms and unleashed a hail of bullets from his semi-automatic rifle. The victims, who were fearfully huddled together, had no means to defend themselves against the merciless attack. Many were shot multiple times, tragically losing their lives to Lanza's horrifying actions. After the shooting spree, Lanza turned the gun on himself and ended his own life with a handgun. The subsequent investigation shed light on the extent of his mental health issues and the inadequate treatment he had received. It was also revealed that Lanza had been diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, an eating disorder that further contributed to his deteriorating physical and mental well-being. Subscriber's Pick. Now it's time for our Subscriber's Pick. If you think you've seen most of the youngest mass murderers in the world, get ready for a chilling tale that would send shivers down your spine. We're diving into the story of Jasmine Richardson, a young convict from Canada who was involved in a shocking family murder in 2006. Can you believe she was only 12 years old at the time? Here's how it all went down. Jasmine started dating a guy named Steinke, who happened to be 11 years older than her. But that wasn't the only strange thing about him. He claimed to be a 300-year-old vampire and openly talked about liking the taste of blood. As you can imagine, Jasmine's parents strongly disapproved of their relationship, fearing Steinke's negative influence on their innocent daughter. But Jasmine and her self-proclaimed werewolf boyfriend were determined to be together. So they came up with a horrifying plan to overcome her parents' objections. They decided to kill them. Awful, right? After carrying out the brutal act, the 2 lovers tried to disappear, running away together. However, they didn't get far. Eventually, they were found and arrested. Richardson, who was only 13 at the time, received the maximum sentence allowed for someone her age under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, 10 years in prison. As for her boyfriend, he got an even harsher punishment, life in prison without parole for 25 years. Now let's hear from you. What do you make of Jasmine Richardson's story? Can you understand her reasons for committing such a horrific attack on her parents? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below as we continue with this video. Number 5. Christine Marie Paulilla. Christine Marie Paulilla experienced tragic circumstances at a young age that would significantly impact the trajectory of her life. At the tender age of 2, Christine's father lost his life in a construction accident, leaving her and her family devastated. Sadly, the loss of her father was just the beginning of Christine's hardships. Her mother, Lori Paulilla, got stuck into a dangerous cycle of drug abuse, resulting in Christine being taken away from her. While she was raised by her grandparents, Christine faced yet another hurdle when she was diagnosed with alopecia during her kindergarten years. The cruel mocking she endured due to her hair loss forced her into wearing wigs and left her feeling utterly alone. The combination of losing her father, her mother's absence, and the relentless bullying she suffered had a profound impact on Christine. Insecurities came into play, leaving emotional scars that made social interactions difficult and further isolating her from her peers. But hope would eventually find its way into Christine's life. As fate would have it, Christine's mother was able to overcome her addiction and found love again. The family decided to start afresh in Clear Lake City, Texas. This move would prove to be a turning point for Christine when she enrolled in Clear Lake High School. It was in this school that Christine's life began to take a different path. Two popular students, Rachel Carutis and Tiffany Roll, noticed something special in Christine beyond her physical appearance. Recognizing her potential, they took it upon themselves to help her blend in and improve her image. Under the wing of Rachel and Tiffany, Christine underwent an incredible transformation. They taught her the art of makeup, how to style her hair, and dress in a way that would make her feel confident and fashionable. It was a metamorphosis that took Christine from a lonely outcast to a blossoming young woman. No longer the target of bullies, Christine started gaining acceptance and recognition among her peers. In fact, her popularity reached its peak when she was crowned Miss Irresistible by her fellow students in 2003. This accolade solidified Christine's place among the popular crowd and gave her a boost of self-esteem she had never experienced before. But underneath the surface of her newfound confidence, a storm was brewing. Christine had found love in Christopher Lee Snyder, a troubled young man with a history of drug use and a criminal record. Concerns arose among her loved ones, including her mother, stepfather, and friends, who feared the toxic influence Snyder might have on her life. Despite their warnings, Christine remained devoted to Snyder, leading to a tumultuous relationship marked by intense arguments and bouts of jealousy. Friends and family didn't shy away from describing the relationship as abusive and dysfunctional. On one occasion, Christine even made a chilling threat against Snyder's family in the heat of a particularly heated argument. The combination of Christine's troubled upbringing, her history of bullying, and her unstable relationship with Snyder created a dangerous concoction of emotions within her. These factors would eventually lead to a tragic series of events on that fateful night in July 2003. The date, July 18 of that same year, will forever be etched in the memories of those affected by the Clear Lake Massacre. That night, Christine Paulilla and her boyfriend, Christopher Snyder, embarked on a path of unimaginable violence, resulting in 4 young lives being brutally cut short. Their destination was Tiffany Rowell's home, located in Clear Lake City, Texas. Unknown to Tiffany, her boyfriend Marcus Priscilla, and Christine's cousin Adalbert Sanchez, a sinister plan was about to unfold. Originally intending to steal drugs from the house, Christine and Snyder's intentions soon escalated into something far more sinister. As tensions soared, a heated argument erupted between Snyder and Priscilla. In a horrifying turn of events, Christine and Snyder unleashed a hail of bullets upon their unsuspecting friends. Following the massacre, an exhaustive 3-year investigation ensued. The search for justice was marked by grief and fear as Christine and Snyder managed to evade capture. However, a breakthrough came in 2006 when an anonymous tip led authorities to San Antonio, where Christine and Snyder were hiding. Her arrest marked the beginning of a long legal battle that would shed light on her involvement in the gruesome murders. During the trial, Christine attempted to shift the blame onto Snyder. However, the evidence presented painted a picture of shared responsibility. In 2008, she was sentenced to life in prison as a juvenile offender, and that provided a semblance of closure to the shattered community still haunted by the scars of the Clear Lake Massacre. Number 4. Graham Young. From an early age, Graham Young possessed a morbid fascination with chemistry and poison. His youthful mind was captivated by the effects of various toxins on the human body, and he admired notorious murderers such as Dr. Hawley Crippen, William Palmer, and even Adolf Hitler. This unusual obsession would eventually shape the course of his life. Young's foray into the world of poisons began at the tender age of 14. Using his keen intellect and deceptive tactics, he would lie about his age, claiming that the chemicals he sought were for school experiments. Little did his family and friends know that they would become unwitting subjects of his sinister tests. The first victims of Young's poisonous experiments were his own family. Initially, his father dismissed his symptoms as a common virus. However, as relentless vomiting, diarrhea, and excruciating stomach pains plagued not only his father, but also his mother and sister, a sinister pattern started to emerge. In a tragic turn of events, his stepmother's mother fell victim to poisoning, further deepening the mystery surrounding the unexplained illnesses. What made Young even more terrifying was his remarkable knowledge of chemistry, which he had meticulously acquired through countless hours spent in the library. By the time he was only 14, he possessed the expertise of a postgraduate chemistry student. He even had the audacity to conduct experiments on himself, sometimes forgetting which foods he had contaminated with toxic chemicals. Young's dark secret was revealed when a curious teacher decided to inspect his desk one evening after school. Troubled by the unusual experiments Young had suggested to the class, the teacher stumbled upon a chilling collection of poisons, essays on notorious criminals, and unsettling sketches of dying men. The gravity of the situation prompted the teacher to involve the authorities, and Young was finally caught. Subsequently, Young was sent to a maximum security hospital with the belief that his reign of terror would come to an end. However, underestimating the extent of Young's sinister knowledge was a grave mistake. Within the confines of the hospital, he continued his malevolent activities, poisoning both staff and fellow inmates. Tragically, one of his victims succumbed to the lethal effects of his toxic concoctions. Young's extensive understanding of chemistry allowed him to extract cyanide from seemingly harmless laurel bush leaves. His toxic knowledge knew no bounds, and his reign of terror persisted. Eventually, Young was released from the hospital at the age of 23, believing that he had been rehabilitated and could reintegrate into society. Unfortunately, this respite was short-lived. While continuing his reign of terror, Young set his sights on unsuspecting co-workers, poisoning them with deadly precision. His actions were discovered once again, and that led to his reincarceration. Eventually, he died in prison in August 1990 at the age of 42. Number 3. Brenda Ann Spencer. January 29, 1979, was a day that would forever haunt the memories of many because of a shocking act of violence that unfolded at Grover Cleveland Elementary School in San Diego, California. It was a shooting incident that was initiated by Brenda Ann Spencer. Understanding the horrifying events that unfolded that day necessitates delving into Brenda's own troubled story. Born on April 3, 1962 in San Diego, California, Brenda faced a tumultuous upbringing, shaped by her parents' separation and a series of distressing events. Raised in poverty by her father, Brenda's life was stark and punctuated by growing hostility towards authority figures, casting a grim shadow over what was to come. Despite struggling with academic pursuits, Brenda did possess a talent for photography and even secured first prize in a Humane Society competition. Yet this brilliance was overshadowed by her disconnect from those around her and her growing detachment from the world. As Brenda entered her teenage years, her behavior grew increasingly alarming. She showed a penchant for hunting birds in the neighborhood and had a troubling encounter with the law for using a BB gun to shoot out the windows of Grover Cleveland Elementary. Reports varied regarding her involvement in a burglary, but it was clear that her actions were becoming increasingly disturbing. In the months leading up to the tragic shooting, Brenda's behavior took an even darker turn. Staff at a facility for problem students, where she had been referred for truancy, expressed grave concerns about her well-being and alerted her parents to her suicidal thoughts. However, her father, Wallace, denied permission for her to receive treatment in a mental hospital. The Christmas period in 1978 marked a chilling turning point in Brenda's life. Instead of the radio she had requested, her father gifted her with a Ruger 10-22 semi-automatic .22 caliber rifle and a shocking 500 rounds of ammunition. This disturbing present would set the stage for the devastating events that transpired only weeks later. On that fateful day, Brenda was armed with her rifle, which she used to lay siege to innocent children and adults gathered outside the school gates. Chaos erupted as students and teachers scrambled for safety. Principal Burton Ragg and teacher Darrell Barnes valiantly rushed to shield the children, but tragically lost their lives at the hands of Brenda. Custodian Mike Susha's heroic efforts to pull a student to safety also ended in tragedy. The situation might have been even more catastrophic, if not for the quick intervention of the police, who thwarted Brenda's line of fire by positioning a garbage truck in front of the school entrance. This courageous act curtailed further casualties and enabled law enforcement to focus on negotiating with Brenda to halt the horrifying episode. Even as the shooting persisted, Brenda barricaded herself inside her home for several tense hours. While there, she spoke by telephone to a reporter from the Evening Tribune who had been randomly calling telephone numbers in the neighborhood. In a shocking confession, Brenda admitted to shooting at the school children and adults, citing her chilling reason, "I don't like Mondays." Negotiators labored tirelessly to persuade Brenda to surrender peacefully. After painstaking negotiations, they succeeded in coaxing her out of the house, allegedly by promising her food from Burger King. Following her capture, everyone found out just how bad the tragedy really was. The aftermath of the Cleveland Elementary School shooting left a shattered community grappling with grief, trauma, and the arduous path to healing. Number 2. Jesse Pomroy. Known famously as the youngest person ever convicted of first-degree murder in the history of Massachusetts, Jesse Pomroy did lots of terrible things before his conviction. He was born on November 29, 1859, in Charlestown, Massachusetts, to Thomas Pomroy and Ruth Ann Snowman. Pomroy's path of cruelty began at the tender age of 11 when he targeted other children within his age group. He would lure them to a secret hiding spot where he would subject them to unimaginable acts of torture. Pomroy's method of inflicting suffering included stripping the victims naked, tying them up, and using a knife or pins to inflict pain and suffering. It is believed that these sadistic acts gave him a sense of pleasure. In total, Pomroy trapped and tormented 7 innocent children. Initially, Pomroy was caught and sent to a reform school, where he was expected to stay until the age of 21. However, due to claims of good behavior, he was released after just a year and a half. Unfortunately, the reform school failed to correct Pomroy's distorted desires. After just 3 years, he escalated from bad to worse. In 1874, Pomroy kidnapped and murdered Katie Curran, a 10-year-old girl. There were also accusations of his involvement in the murder of a 4-year-old boy, although concrete evidence linking him to that crime was lacking. The police discovered Katie's lifeless body in the basement of Pomroy's mother's dress shop, hidden carelessly in an ash heap. He was subsequently convicted of her murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, which he served in solitary confinement. Meanwhile, Jesse Pomroy died at the age of 72 from natural causes, bringing an end to his reign of terror. Number 1. Berrydale Lecitus. In a tragic chapter of American history, the unsettling tale of Berrydale Lecitus serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can reside within some individuals. In February 2, 1996, 14-year-old Lecitus was involved in the Frontier Middle School shooting at Moses Lake, Washington. In the year prior to the shooting, the Lecitus family was in a dysfunctional state dealing with multiple issues. Lecitus's parents separated in 1995 after his mother discovered her husband was having an affair. She then filed for divorce against her husband in January 1996. His mother, Joanne Phillips, was a domineering woman who became increasingly distant and began speaking of suicide. It got to the extent she even hinted at a joint suicide plan with Lecitus, marking Valentine's Day as their chosen day of exit. However, Lecitus managed to sway his mother to express her emotions through writing instead, and this averted the imminent tragedy. Amidst this tumultuous storm, Lecitus's mental health was another piece of the puzzle that raised concern. Psychologists, brought in by his defense team, suspected he might have been battling depression or bipolar disorder. It was also reported that Lecitus had hyperactivity and was under a medication called Ritalin at the time of the shooting. On that fateful day, Lecitus was dressed as a Wild West-style gunslinger and was wearing a black duster. He was armed with a .30 caliber hunting rifle and 2 handguns, a .22 caliber revolver, and a .25 semi-automatic pistol that belonged to his father. Amidst the chaos and terror, 2 young lives were tragically snuffed out. Arnold Fritz and Manuel Vela Jr., both 14-year-old students, became victims of the senseless violence. Natalie Hintz, a vulnerable 13-year-old student, suffered critical gunshot wounds and had to be airlifted to Seattle's Harborview Medical Center for urgent care. And if the horror wasn't enough, Lecitus turned his weapon toward his own algebra teacher, Leona Cares, ending her life with a single fatal shot to the chest. In the midst of this nightmare, a hero who happened to be a teacher and a coach in the school, John Lane, came to the rescue of the students. Drawn by the sound of gunfire, he didn't hesitate to rush into the classroom. To his disbelief, he found Lecitus holding his fellow students hostage, intending to use them as shields during his escape. But Lane, embodying the utmost bravery and selflessness, made a life-altering decision. He offered himself as a hostage instead, providing an opportunity for his terrified students to escape. Taking matters into his own hands, he disarmed Lecitus, wrestling him to the ground, and ensuring the safety of those in his charge until law enforcement arrived. On September 24, 1997, Lecitus was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, 1 count of first-degree attempted murder, and 16 counts of aggravated kidnapping. He was sentenced to serve 2 life sentences and an additional 205 years without the possibility of parole. Following the shooting, the aftermath was marked by shock and mourning as the community of Moses Lake grappled with the devastation. Families were shattered, and lives were forever altered by the senseless acts of violence that unfolded within those school walls.